Hello viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. Get ready for heart-touching stories. Don't forget to subscribe and let's begin.
The morning of the reading of Harold Whitmore's will, I wore the same navy dress I had worn to his funeral 3 days before. I hadn't been able to bring myself to change it. It still smelled faintly of the lilies that had crowded the church in Savannah, Georgia, where my husband of 41 years had been laid to rest on a Tuesday in October, beneath a sky so blue it seemed cruel. I am Eleanor Whitmore. I am 67 years old. And on that Wednesday morning, sitting in the leather chair across from our family attorney, Richard Kavanaugh, I was still not entirely sure who I was without Harold beside me. Our three children sat in a row to my left: Bradford, 52, who had his father's jawline and his father's impatience; Diane, 49, who had flown in from London with a rolling suitcase and a perfume I didn't recognize; and James, 45, Harold's youngest, who sat clicking a pen against his knee the entire time Richard was speaking. They had all driven in separate cars. They had all arrived at the office before me. When I walked through the glass doors of Kavanaugh and Associates, the three of them were already seated, whispering, and they stopped when I entered. Harold Whitmore had built his wealth the old-fashioned way: 30 years of commercial real estate development, starting with a single strip mall in Beaufort, South Carolina, and expanding quietly, methodically across the southeastern United States. He was not a flashy man. He drove a 10-year-old Ford pickup. He tipped generously at diners and badly at fine restaurants because he didn't believe in fine restaurants. He wore the same brand of boots for 30 years. He called me Ellie, always Ellie, and every single morning of our marriage he made the coffee before I woke up, leaving my mug on my side of the kitchen counter with the handle turned exactly the way I liked it. He had never told me the full extent of what he was worth. I knew we were comfortable. I did not know we were wealthy. I would learn that morning, from Richard Kavanaugh's measured, practiced voice, that Harold's estate was valued at just over $31 million. $31 million. I sat with that number for a moment, like you might sit with a word in a foreign language, recognizing its shape but not yet feeling its meaning. Richard explained the terms of the will with the efficient kindness of a man who had done this many times. Harold had left the majority of the estate, $30 million, distributed in equal shares of $10 million each, to Bradford, Diane, and James. The real estate holdings, the investment portfolios, the commercial properties in Charleston and Savannah and Atlanta. All of it divided three ways, passed to the children. I watched my children's faces. Bradford straightened in his chair. Diane exhaled through her nose, long and controlled. James finally stopped clicking the pen. Then Richard turned to me. "Whitmore," he said, "Harold left specific instructions regarding your portion of the estate. He asked that it be delivered to you privately in a sealed envelope to be opened at your discretion." He slid a cream-colored envelope across the mahogany desk. It was sealed with wax, burgundy wax, pressed with a small letter H. Harold had done that himself, I realized. He had sealed it himself. My children looked at the envelope. Bradford asked what was in it. Richard said he wasn't at liberty to say. Diane looked at me with an expression that I had trouble naming. It was somewhere between pity and calculation. James had resumed clicking the pen. I picked up the envelope, put it in my purse, and thanked Richard for his time. We gathered for lunch afterward at Bradford's suggestion at a restaurant downtown with white tablecloths and a wine list. I ordered iced tea. My children ordered wine. For an hour they talked around me about estate taxes and financial advisors and the timeline for liquidating certain properties. Bradford had already spoken to someone at Goldman Sachs. Diane was considering relocating from London to Charleston to oversee her share. James wanted to know if the commercial property in Atlanta could be converted to mixed-use residential. They were not cruel people. I want to be clear about that. They were people who had grown up watching their father succeed, who had been told from childhood that hard work produced results, who had absorbed Harold's pragmatism without absorbing his gentleness. They loved me. They simply did not think to ask me anything. I sat at that table and watched them divide their father's legacy, and I held my purse in my lap with both hands, and I thought about the envelope inside it. And I thought about Harold making coffee every morning, and I did not cry because I had already cried until I was hollow, and what was left inside me now was something quieter and harder, something I did not yet have a name for. After lunch, I drove myself to the house. Our house. The one Harold and I had bought in 1987 when Bradford was 12 and Diane was 9 and James was 5. The white clapboard colonial on Marshview Drive with the wraparound porch and the two live oaks in the front yard that had grown so large their roots had buckled part of the sidewalk. I had lived in that house for 37 years. The children had been raised in it. Harold had died in it, in our bedroom, with his hand in mine, on a Sunday afternoon when the light through the curtains was amber and soft. I sat in the kitchen for a long time without turning on the lights. Then I made myself a cup of tea the way Harold had always made it, steeped 4 minutes, a small pour of cream, no sugar. I carried it to the back porch. I sat in the rocking chair that had been mine for 2 decades, and I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten on Harold's personal stationery. The heavy cream stock he kept in the bottom drawer of his study desk, monogrammed HCW in navy at the top. His handwriting was careful and slightly cramped, the way it always was when he was writing something that mattered to him. Ellie, if you're reading this, then I wasn't able to say it out loud, which means I ran out of time, which is the one thing I always told myself I'd never do. Forgive me for that. I've left the money to the children because that's what we agreed years ago that we would do. I know you know that. What I also know is that you will sit in that meeting and watch them receive it and you will smile and be gracious, and then you will drive home and sit alone in the kitchen and wonder what comes next. I know this because I know you, Ellie. I have known you for 43 years, which is long enough to know exactly what you will do and exactly what you will feel and exactly what you will not say out loud. So I am going to say the things I should have said when I still had breath to say them. The first thing is this. I have set aside, separately from the estate, $1 million in an account in your name alone. Richard has the details. It is yours to spend exactly as you choose with no obligation to explain yourself to anyone, not to Bradford, not to Diane, not to James, not to any financial advisor, not to me. Buy a house in France if you want. Take a painting class in Florence. Get a dog, a large, ridiculous dog who sheds on everything. I always said no to the dog because I was selfish and I am sorry for that, but the money is not the important thing, Ellie. The money is only a door. The important thing is what I need to tell you about yourself, because I have watched you for 43 years make yourself small in ways you didn't even notice. You raised 3 children and never once asked them to rearrange their schedules for you. You hosted every holiday dinner and never once sat down before everyone else had been served. You had opinions, strong, brilliant, particular opinions, about books and art and politics and people, and you shared them with me in the kitchen at midnight and almost never in rooms full of people who should have heard them. You were the most interesting person I ever met, and I did not tell you that enough, and I cannot live with the silence of having not told you. Here's what I need you to do, and I mean this as a husband and not as an instruction. I need you to stop waiting. You have been waiting your whole life, waiting for the children to be settled, waiting for retirement, waiting for the right moment to want things. The right moment is now. It was always now. Now is all there ever was. There is a journal in the bottom drawer of my desk, the same drawer where I keep the stationery. I have been writing in it for the past year since the diagnosis. Not about the illness, about you, about the things I noticed that I never said. Read it when you're ready, not before. The house is yours. Stay in it or don't. The world is large and you are still in it, which is the most important fact I know. I love you, Ellie. I loved you from the first night I met you at that terrible party in Columbia in 1981 when you told me you thought Hemingway was overrated, and I knew immediately and completely that I was finished. You were always the whole point. Harold, I sat on that porch until the marsh went dark and the night herons started calling from somewhere in the tall grass. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and placed it back in the cream envelope with the burgundy wax. I did not call my children. I did not call anyone. What I did was this. I went inside, turned on every light in the house, walked to Harold's study and opened the bottom drawer of his desk. The journal was there, a black moleskin, thick with pages, his cramped, careful handwriting filling every one. I placed it on the desk and sat in his chair, which still held the faint cedar smell of him, and I ran my hand over the cover and thought about what it meant to be known, not managed, not accommodated, not loved in the efficient peripheral way that busy people love the constants in their lives. Known, the kind of knowing that only comes from 43 years of paying quiet attention. I did not read the journal that night. I wasn't ready, but I kept my hand on it for a long time. In the weeks that followed, I called Richard Kavanaugh and asked about the account. It was real, $1 million sitting there in my name waiting. Bradford called to ask about it. I told him it was a private arrangement and changed the subject. It was the first time in recent memory that I had changed the subject without apologizing first. I enrolled in a watercolor class at the Savannah College of Art and Design. I had wanted to paint for 30 years. I had never done it because there was always something else. Now I went every Tuesday and Thursday morning and I was not good at it. My color mixing was clumsy and my proportions were inconsistent. But I sat in that bright studio with 23-year-old art students, and I made something with my hands and nobody needed anything from me for 2 hours, and it was inexplicably the closest to joy I had felt since the lilies. I got the dog. A large, ridiculous golden retriever I named Harold, which made the children uncomfortable and which I found privately delightful. He shed on everything. He slept at the foot of my bed and breathed loudly and knocked things off the coffee table with his tail. He was perfect. I read the journal in December on a cold gray afternoon with Harold the dog asleep on my feet. It took me 4 hours. Harold, my husband, had written about the way I laughed at things that surprised me. The way I always read the last page of a book before I started it, just to know. The way I hummed while I cooked without knowing I was doing it. He had written about the night in 1994 when James was sick and I stayed up 3 nights running without complaint, and about the trip to Barcelona in 2003 when I stood in the Sagrada Familia and wept openly in front of strangers because I said it was too beautiful not to. He had written, "She is never embarrassed by beauty. This is the most remarkable thing about her." I read that line and I put the journal on my chest and I looked at the ceiling and I thought I would like to be that person. I would like to be the person he saw, and then slowly and perfectly without any particular plan I decided that I would try. I did not go to France, at least not that first year. I did take a trip to Barcelona. I stood again in the Sagrada Familia. I wept again openly in front of strangers. It was still too beautiful not to. My children received their $30 million. They hired advisors and restructured portfolios and made investments. Bradford is doing well. Diane has moved back from London. James has started a family foundation in Harold's name, which Harold would have found mortifying and touching in equal measure. They call me more often now. I'm not entirely sure why. Perhaps something shifted in me that made them reconsider, or perhaps losing a parent reorients a person toward the one who remains. At Christmas dinner, which I hosted as always, I sat down before everyone else had been served. Bradford noticed. He didn't say anything, but he got up and brought the rolls to the table himself. It was a small thing. It was everything. I am 67 years old. I have $1 million and a ridiculous dog and a Tuesday-Thursday watercolor class and a journal full of a dead man's love. I have a wraparound porch and 2 old oaks and a marsh that turns gold every evening at 5 o'clock. I have opinions I share now in rooms full of people who should hear them. Harold left the money to the children. He left me something harder to quantify and infinitely more valuable. The instruction, finally, to take up the space I had always been entitled to. I am not waiting anymore. The right moment is now. It was always now. Now is all there ever was.